Consequences of cyberbullying. Legal. Europe's legal framework for fighting against cyberbullying might differ from one country to another, as each country has their unique system of policies and laws. The diverse legal frameworks are a reflection of the socio-cultural contexts and legislative priorities of individual nations. Countries in Europe and the world might not have a specific law for cyberbullying, however they can have different laws that can address some parts of the cyberbullying, for example. Laws against harassment and defamation, which can address incidents of cyberbullying. Their purpose is to protect people from derogatory comments, unfavorable rumors, persistent online harassment, etc. Laws concerning to privacy and data protection, for example, the General Data Protection Regulation (GDPR) in the European Union. Fundamentally, the GDPR defines people's rights in the digital age to take more control over their personal information, including the right of a person to give explicit consent before processing their personal data, easier access to their personal data, the right to delete and rectify their data, the right to decline the use of their personal information for profiling purposes, data portability rights among service providers. Furthermore, the GDPR clearly places requirements on those who process data. The GDPR carefully lays out the procedures and requirements needed to guarantee its compliance, creating a foundation that places a premium on the ethical and responsible management of personal data. Most importantly, the GDPR establishes a system of penalties intended to deal with any violations of its rules. These penalties are essential for people responsible for breaking the regulations, which emphasizes how important privacy and data protection are in today's digital world. If victims have suffered a violation of their privacy, for example doxing, they might be able to take legal actions against the bully. Laws for addressing the safety of children and young minors. These regulations can prevent children from being victims of sextortion, coercion, harassment, etc. Laws for criminal violations. Cyberbullying incidents might be illegal with severe penalties such as jail. For example, many countries in Europe and the rest of the world consider the unauthorized recording and publishing of digital sexual consent with jail penalties. Laws prohibiting online hate speech. In some countries, there could be legal repercussions of cyberbullying incidents that contain offensive or discriminatory content that targets people because of their race, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, etc. It is important that people who are victims of cyberbullying become aware of the laws and policies available in their countries. In this way, it will be easier for victims to address the situation in a more effective way. The relevance of reporting cyberbullying incidents as soon as possible is essential before it escalates. It is of highly importance to contact the police in situations such as severe harms are caused, when the situation starts to escalate, when the victim's safety is at risk, when the situation is getting out of control, etc. Personal. Low self-esteem. The Cambridge Dictionary defines self-esteem as the belief and confidence in your own ability and value. Cyberbullying can seriously and negatively affect a person's self-esteem, as the victim can internalize negative comments and posts, leading to a negative self-perception. Victim can acquire feelings of worthlessness, questioning their value as a person or their valuable contributions in a group. Being excluded can affect their self-esteem. Happy slapping can amplify a perceived loss of dignity and respect. Victims can start questioning their abilities and worth. Avoidance to join social events can lower the opportunity for building positive self-esteem experiences. Acquiring doubts of their physical appearance, etc. Mental health consequences. Emotional consequences on victims. Although for bullies can be funny, for the victims can decrease the quality of their lives in less than one day. It is important to identify and comprehend the variety of strong feelings that victims of cyberbullying frequently experience. First of all, cyberbullying may cause intense feelings of humiliation and embarrassment, as in most of the cases these events are persistent and visible to the public. Events such as sextortion, happy slapping, etc. can emerge these feelings, where the victim is object of disrespect and fun by the rest of the community. Aside from embarrassment, victims also frequently experience anger. Strong emotions of anger and resentment can be triggered by the unfairness of being cyberbullied. Injustice and the lack of capacity to stop these incidents can cause frustration and overwhelming. Furthermore, people could feel sad, as in most of times they cannot control the unfavorable story that is being told about them. In addition, victims of cyberbullying typically feel helpless in their situation. Bullies can give victims the impression that they are significantly more powerful than them, which makes them feel even more powerless. Unfortunately, cyberbullying can have the characteristic of escalating, being frequent and/or be persistent over time. This can generate that the victim constantly experiences the feelings above and much more. The persistent exposure of these feelings can lead to depression and anxiety. Anxiety levels can rise when victims are subjected to cruel comments, critical messages, or public humiliation on a regular basis. A reason for this could be that memories of previous traumas arise. Moreover, victims might have anxiety due to fear that they will be attacked again. The continuing tension and psychological torment brought on by cyberbullying may cause depression. Victims can have depression as a result of their constant feelings of helplessness, loneliness, sadness, powerless, etc. The National Institute of Mental Health defines depression as a common but serious mood disorder. It causes severe symptoms that affect how a person feels, thinks, and handles daily activities, such as sleeping, eating, or working. Behavioral consequences on victims. As mentioned above, cyberbullying can cause depression on victims. Depression can be manifested in a range of behaviors that can happen individually or socially. See the social section from this chapter. Changes on sleep patterns. Depression can interfere with sleep cycles, resulting in not being able to sleep, wake up very early, or excessive sleep. Sleep disturbances can affect people's humor, as they will experience constant fatigue during the day, anxiety and overthinking at nights, etc. Changes on appetite. A victim's appetite may fluctuate significantly, leading to excess consumption in food or a decrease in appetite. This can lead to eating disorders which can affect their physical health. Difficulty in concentration. Depression can affect cognitive functioning, making it difficult to concentrate, think clearly, make judgments and take wise decisions. Substance consumption. As a coping method, some victims can turn to drugs or alcohol. The constant abuse of these substances can lead to addiction problems, causing dangerous consequences in the person and their social circles, family, partner, friends, etc. Hopelessness or pessimism. Cyberbullying victims might become stuck in a vicious circle of hopelessness, believing that their nowadays problems will never improve. They frequently have difficulty seeing a better future, which might make their mental health worse. Diminished vitality, tiredness or a slowdown. Victims might have a severe loss of energy and feel exhausted all the time. Tiredness can be in a physical and mental way. Depression can make the person carry out their daily tasks more slowly. Increased impulsivity. The lack of concentration and making decisions can facilitate the impulsivity of a person. Impulsivity can lead to risky actions or behaviors which can make the victim be part of a worse scenario. Issues with sexual performance and desire. Depression can have a big effect on the person's libido and ability to have sexual relations. The loss of interest can affect the victim's relationships and sexual dysfunctions, contributing to a worse emotional distress. These behaviors can vary on each person. However, it is important to recognize and comprehend these behaviors that emerge on cyberbullying victims. In this way, we can support the persons to look for help from a professional therapist in order to work on their mental health. Addressing cyberbullying incidents with a mental health expert can empower the victim to counteract and stop the situation. Teaching unit, the feeling wheel. Duration, 1 hour. The main aim of the activity is to raise awareness of how the involved parties feel in a cyberbullying incident. Step 1. Divide learners into different groups. Step 2. Provide them the feeling wheel. Step 3. Ask your learners to take a look to the wheel and answer the following questions. How do bullies feel while executing cyberbullying incidents? How do victims feel? Try to assign feelings according to each of the cyberbullying types. How could bystanders feel? For using the wheel, it is important that learners start with the inner circle and then move to the circles from the outside to assign a feeling. Learners can also use the blank spaces from the outer circle to add more feelings. Step 4. Ask to each group to write on a board their answers. Step 5. Compare feelings and make a final chart with all the ideas. Sometimes for ourselves it is difficult to get the ideal word to describe how we feel. However, understanding other people's emotions might be much more difficult, especially if we have not personally lived their experiences. For this reason, this activity is important to understand the feeling scenarios of bullies, victims, and bystanders. This activity works as empathy tool that will put us in the shoes of the persons who experience cyberbullying. We will be able to better understand the emotional situation and vulnerability that victims go through. We will also recognize the intentions, fears, and occasionally regrets of cyberbullies, as well as the complicated range of feelings that bystanders experience when they are indirectly engaged in these incidents. In this way, we will develop a stronger sense of empathy and awareness, which are essential for counteracting and preventing cyberbullying. Physical consequences. Physiological effects. Cyberbullying victims can develop physiological symptoms due to the constant mental health distress they are experiencing. Muscles tension. Stress can lead to tense muscles, especially in shoulders, neck, and back. This can generate constant pains in the body. Digestive problems. The digestive system can be affected due to stress of cyberbullying incidents, causing stomachache, indigestion, gastritis, stomach ulcers, diarrhea, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, etc. Headaches and migraine. They can emerge due to extended periods of stress and worry. Skin issues. Stress can affect the skin, causing acne, psoriasis, rashes, wrinkles, face flushing, etc. Weakened immunological system. Long-term stress can compromise immunological function, leaving sufferers more vulnerable to infections and diseases. They could discover that they are becoming sick more often. Cardiovascular problems. Extended periods of worry and stress can raise blood pressure and put people at higher risk of developing heart-related problems. Self-harm. Depression can lead to self-harm as a result of the deep emotional pain, hopelessness, despair, etc. that victims of cyberbullying experience. Self-harm is a response where victims can use it due to complicated reasons such as emotional release, regaining control, self-punishment, release endorphins, etc. Fortunately, self-harming is not a universal response and not all persons practice it. Suicidal thoughts. In cyberbullying, victims can start to have abstract thoughts about ending their lives, such as, what happens if I kill myself? Would somebody miss me? Who would go to my funeral? Etc. Suicidal thoughts are very dangerous because if they are not controlled, the person might change it into an action. Persons might start thinking on different techniques, dates, and places to take off their lives. Cyberbullying is dangerous. When the victim does not see an ending on the situation, considers that the incident will devastate their life, etc., the previous thoughts can be executed to relieve their pain. Whenever we identify that a person is having suicidal thoughts, it is very important not to underestimate its importance. Sometimes these thoughts could be expressed as jokes. Therefore, we need to be open to talk about this topic with the person and get help. Remember that your action can mark the difference for the person to have the brighter future needed. Social. Cyberbullying have far-reaching social consequences that affect victims in many ways. Isolation. The most noticeable consequence is social isolation. In order to protect themselves, victims frequently feel forced to set apart from social connections, either in the digital world or in the real one. The fear of continue being harassed, humiliated, damaging their reputation, etc. reduce the possibilities of social interaction, thus, develop positive relationships. Let's not forget that one type of cyberbullying is exclusion, decreasing the quality of the victim's friendships. This isolation on one hand obstructs the growth of interpersonal abilities, and in the other hand intensifies emotions of not having friends. Constant isolation can reinforce the idea of victims that is better to be on my own. Quitting from enjoyed activities. Sometimes, persons who are being cyberbullied can quit from activities that once they enjoyed. Two of the main reasons of this are: fear. The fear of encountering further harassment may cause victims to disengage from hobbies, sports, or community involvement that once brought them joy. Loss of interest. Depression can cause that people lose interest in activities that once gave them fun. They can also have a lack of motivation to go to these events or start new ones. For victims, it can be really challenging to regain their enthusiasm in these activities. The withdrawal of these activities reinforce their isolation, affecting their social and emotional well-being. Decrease the quality of personal relationships. Cyberbullying can have a negative effect on the victim's relationships, friends, family, partners, colleagues, etc. If the mental health is affected, there is a high probability that relationships are also harmed. The emotional distress caused by cyberbullying make victims to become more irritable, leading to misunderstandings and conflicts. On the other hand, victims might distance themselves from friends and family, interacting with them in a more unpleasant way and with a more distanced attitude. Damaged relationships can take time, communication, and understanding to be repaired. Furthermore, it is important to highlight that working on mental health is indispensable to reach healthy relations. It is essential not to take things personally whenever a person who has depression affects your relationship. It is relevant to understand that they are passing through a very hard time. Academic or professional consequences. As explained above, cyberbullying and depression can decrease the victim's concentration, performance, and capabilities to make good decisions. As a consequence, victims can struggle with their academic studies of professional tasks, where trying to meet their objectives can become a big challenge. This can affect them in several ways. School. Low grades. Do not learn the subjects. Avoiding going to school. Losing scholarships, career opportunities, etc. Early dropouts, etc. Work. Low performance. Constant mistakes. A lack of control over work. Losing the opportunity of being promoted. Job loss, etc. Involvement in high-risk activities. Some victims of cyberbullying might get involved in risky activities due to factors such as: use it as a coping strategy or a reaction to their negative feelings. Looking for escape from emotional pain. Attract attention to unconsciously communicate their emotional suffering. Depression can lead to reckless behavior and impulsivity, etc.